oldest inhabitant asks to be forgiven for stating what is not strictly true, as her own memory has been solely relied on for dates and circumstances. Much of what she shares was learned in the earliest stages of childhood and may naturally be somewhat vague and shadowy. You didn't hear this from me, but many persons in Lynchburg doubtless remember an unfortunate man whose name was James Moseley. He was more commonly known around town by the moniker of Molly Peckerwood. Yes, you heard that right. More on that later. Few are aware, however, that James Moseley was of a quite respectable parentage and gently reared and nurtured under the influence of the quiet doctrines of Quakerism, which, if you know anything about early Lynchburg, you know that Quakers were as plentiful as red shirts at a Star Trek convention. Mr. Moseley was a native of Bedford County, passing his childhood and youth in the vicinity of Goose Creek. Unfortunately, this doesn't narrow down the location, as Goose Creek rambles from 460 all the way over to the Roanoke River. As a boy, James was employed in the store of Christopher Anthony Sr. in Lynchburg as a clerk and a bookkeeper. Here's where the nickname comes in. Supposedly, Mr. Moseley was known as Molly Peckerwood because he would often peck away at his wooden writing desk with his quill, no doubt driving everyone else around him, as the kids say, low-key cray-cray. Mr. Moseley married a young lady of excellent family, but soon after that time he became intemperate and continued to be so till the day of his death, meaning he made his drinking problem a drinking profession. He had been a man of amiable disposition, and considering the situation in which he lived, his education had been quite well conducted. His handwriting was elegant, and he never omitted any opportunity of making a display in chirography. The style of his letters was much like that of Wilkins Micawber from that illustrious novel, David Copperfield, the Dickensian character, not the magician. This was noted by many well-born citizens, as the kids would say, to be dope. Unable to work due to the fact that he was often feeling his Quaker oats, Moseley was supported by his former employer, Mr. Anthony, and after his death, Sampson Duguid. Yes, that Duguid. Often when James would visit the office of a gentleman, if no one was within, he would seat himself at the writing desk, and with many ornamental strokes of the pen, he would write, "Sir, permit me to wonder that you should thus leave your office." About twice a year, he would go to Bedford, where he had established a writing school, and take his well-earned proceeds to be applied to what he described as breakfast and trimmings. Trimmings being the name he gave to a glass of brandy. Mr. Duguid thought James looked so distinguished that when renowned silhouettist William Henry Brown visited Lynchburg, he suggested James had a picturesque appeal and put him forward to Mr. Brown as a subject of a silhouette. The finished artwork hung in Sampson Duguid's office for many years and may be recognizable to citizens of Lynchburg today. Immortalized as he was, James Molly Peckerwood Moseley died a pauper in 1843 in Lynchburg. He was buried in the Potter's Field in Old City Cemetery, and his entry can be found in the burial records of Duguid Funeral Home, an irony given his close friendship with Sampson Duguid. In 1942, an article was written by a local grande dame, Lucille McWayne Watson, that called James Moseley a ne'er-do-well among the well-to-do. But that's none of my business.